Hello everyone, I'm Pratyush and welcome to a fresh episode of The Underdog Protagonist. The guest we have today is Jamie Hughes, a social psychologist, a writer, and a certified therapeutic writing instructor with a deep specialization in trauma, resilience, and self care. With a master in psychology and years of experience in victim advocacy, Jamie brings both scholarly insight and compassion to the table. He has written several books and his recent ones focus on mental health and ADHD. He's also a firm believer that healing is not linear, but it is possible. Whether you're navigating your own storm or supporting someone through theirs, this episode will provide you strategies, stories, and a straight up soul. So, without any further ado, let's welcome our guest to the podcast. Hi, Jamie. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you very much.
Before we begin the episode, I just want our listeners to have a bit clarity on who you are, what you do, and what are you generally known for.
Okay, sure. I'm a social psychologist. I'm also an author. So I have 4 books published, working on the 5th now. They're all in the area of mental health. And so I do speaking occasionally and do a lot of research. I am also a certified life coach and a certified therapeutic journaling instructor. So that's interesting. That's actually one of my passions there, among others. And also a member of and I'm going to mess this up, but in the U.S., it's the National Police and Criminal Psychology Association, I think. If that's not right, it's close enough. Yes, basically forensic psychology, which is wasn't an area of passion for me until I did my master's degree, and we had to not necessarily do an official minor, but one of the professors was a forensic psychologist, so all of her assignments were about that topic. So I got, deeply invested and intrigued and kind of went down that rabbit hole, and now I'm in love with that too. So
Gotcha. I mean, that's such an interesting mix of, passion, career, and what you do to drive, your purpose. Uh, but I want to go a little back, where it all started, the story behind all these studies that you have made. And you have got a rich academic background and in trauma, self care, social psychology, and a whole lot more. But before we talk about the frameworks, let's talk about how did your own story, bring you into this work?
yeah, very, very interesting. And actually, it was kind of a natural but unplanned path. When I when I first started working on my bachelor's degree, I don't remember if it was a professor or a fellow student, made the comment that why people go into psychology, right? And I'm like, no, why? Is it to fix themselves? And so anybody you see in psychology, in therapy, psychiatry, most likely they went into it to try to get a better understanding of themselves or their lives or something like that. And so that was very true for me, very true. Mine, my journey to that part was not very smooth at all. And I think people can get a lot from my story, in that even if you've been through, some very traumatic events, even if you've dealt with mental health issues, that's not the end of the road. You can continue and be successful. You can continue and complete your dreams and goals. When I was a baby, probably not even a year old, my parents divorced, and it was a bitter divorce, so bitter that my my mom got rid of all pictures of my dad. So when I was a young child, living with my mom, I never even saw a picture of my dad. I didn't even know I had a father. There was no mention. He was out of the picture. He was gone. Um, and to me, it's kind of funny because now, having been through some life experiences, I know what it's like when you have a breakup and you're just pissed at the person. You get rid of everything,
Yeah.
especially if it was for a bad reason. Um, but so living with my mom when I was young, she passed away when I was only 8 years old. And so, you talk about a traumatic event. Here was a child that only had one parent, only even knew of one parent, and lost them. My grandparents, my mother's parents, who I absolutely loved and they loved me, they wanted to basically adopt me or, have custody of me. And the family court said, no, if his father's alive, he needs to go live with him. And so I was made to go live with my father. First time I'd ever seen him. He did not want me. He already had another life and family and all of that. So I was moved, immediately I think it was within 3 months of my mother dying. I was moved to a totally new city, new school, new family, new everything. And so that was very, very difficult on me. There, there was no time to heal. There was no time to process or even grieve correctly. So a lot of my childhood growing up was just living, trying to survive while grieving under the surface. Um, so then get into my dad's family and living with him. Um, Experienced emotional and psychological abuse from him that continued pretty much the rest of my childhood, even into adulthood. Um, a little, a little physical abuse, but honestly, not much compared to some stories. And I'm not downplaying that. I'm just being honest. But the psychological abuse, the emotional abuse was heavy and regular. So that I I grew up as a teenager thinking I was unwanted and worthless. Um, I started noticing that I was having depression, um, and that went untreated. Even even when I said something about it, it was ignored. Uh, and so I also learned very quickly not to say anything, to keep quiet. Um, so all through teenage years, very rough. And I had good times. I had some good friends at school. I had some best friends, still friends with today. But by the time I was 18, um, an undiagnosed and untreated mental illness on top of abuse and trauma, I had a suicide attempt. And well, obviously I survived. I'm sitting here. But that was the very first time I had any interaction with a mental health professional. So I went to, a mental health hospital by, I don't remember if it was state law or voluntary or what, but I had to stay for like 2 or 3 weeks. And while I was in there, got to talk with some therapists and things like that. Um, so that was the first time I ever, you know, had any discussion about that. And um, I went through a few more years of just being lost, um, not knowing where to go, what to do, just trying to maintain life as best as possible. And then in my mid 20s is when I actually started getting therapy and started going to college for the first time. And I went for my associates in psychology. And then a couple of years later, went for my bachelor's in applied psychology. So that's when I say it was a bumpy and unintentional path into my my field of study and my experiences, where I'm at now, it was rough. And even then, it didn't just, magically go away. I had depression for years and years and years. It took a long time to get on the right medication, the right dosage, to allow the therapy to work, to do what it's supposed to do, and to start learning self-care. And this is something that I think people with a mental illness like depression, or their family members, their friends, something that we don't understand is that just medication is not the only answer. It's needed at times, but it's not the only answer. Just therapy, just talk therapy is not the only answer. If you can go, I've known people that have been going to therapy for years. I mean, like 5-10 years, and they're still going to therapy for the same problem. It's basically become a, talk session, a gossip session for them. And that's not the purpose of it. It shouldn't be. You have to move into the stage where you can learn self-care and self-healing. One of the things that helped me the most, and I mentioned this as being one of my passions, was the journaling. That helped me a lot. I mean, immensely, because it was something I could do on my own. It was something I could do at my own pace. I could talk about whatever I wanted to talk about, whether it was now, whether it was the past, whether it was the future. And I think as you grow, and if you, a lot of people, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're a budding business person, you've got goals of doing whatever it is that you're passionate about. You naturally have a thought process of, here's where I am, and here's where I want to go. What do I need to do to get there? But when you're struggling with a mental illness, whether it's depression, PTSD, ADHD, that doesn't come naturally. It doesn't come naturally because your mind and your body are fighting against those things. They're fighting against them in a way that says, hey, look, whatever's going on right now, right this second, that's the only thing that matters. That's the only thing that's important. So it can be very difficult to think of a future that's positive. It can be difficult to actually make plans and stick with them, or be able to envision a path to get to where you want to go. Those things are not easy, but they're worth it. The journaling, like I said, helped me to do that. And that was something funny enough, I started when I was a teenager, but I didn't know that's what I was doing. I grew up from childhood loving comic books. And as a teenager, I would start writing stories, copying some of the comic books, Spider-Man, for instance. I would kind of write my own stories of a different character, and notice that some of the issues the characters were dealing with in my stories were my issues. So that was the very early beginnings of self-care and finding a way to express the emotions and the thoughts and things that later, evolved into therapeutic writing. And so that's why I pursued that in terms of, and even that was unintentional. I was actually, I bought a book from an author named Kathleen Kennedy. Is that her name? Kathleen Kennedy. Anyways, and it was on self-help and journaling and stuff. And I bought this book. And I was like, oh, I want to see what she has to say. And it turns out that she actually ran an organization that provided credentialing to teach that. And so that's kind of how I came into that. And I took that and got my credentialing there, and have taught different classes, and even taught therapists how to use this as a tool with their clients, things like that. So, Yeah, it took many twists and turns and a lot of struggling to make progress, and took a lot of time. Um, and I think that's something important for people to remember, that healing takes time, just like bodybuilding. If you go to the gym and you want to build your biceps, your pecs, your quads, calves, whatever, you don't just go in this week, do 20 reps, and then next week you got, you know, calves that are just popping out of your socks. That's not the way it works. It takes consistent effort over time, and then you see the results. It's the same with mental health. It can be done no matter what you're dealing with. You can get to a place of healing and growth. It just takes time and consistent effort. So give yourself the patience and the break that you need, and don't be hard on yourself and think that, oh, just because I've been to therapy for 6 months now, now all of a sudden I'm having this emotional issue. I shouldn't be having this. Yeah, you should. You're going to have emotional issues from now on. Even when you're healed, you're still going to have, get angry at stuff, or there's stuff that's going to make you cry. You know, I I don't know about you, but I'm a big Walking Dead fan, and recently I've been rewatching The Walking Dead from beginning to end. And just a couple of weeks ago, I got to the season and the part where Carl dies, and I'm sitting there tearing up, and I'm like, geez, I've already seen this like 3 times. And so, you're always going to have that. That's normal.
Yeah.
But you can get to a point to where that the trauma and the pain aren't running the majority of your life.
A lot of times, people misunderstand what trauma is all about, especially the ones who have not faced it or felt it firsthand. Mental health as a topic came into light. I mean, for me, what I came to know more about, like when it was trending, was during COVID. Like when COVID struck, everyone was talking about mental health because everyone was being pushed inside their houses, and
Yep.
the sudden shift of dynamics is what made them realize that mental health is something that we need to look after.
hmm
But that misunderstanding never went, because even though they are kind of feeling what mental health is all about, they are looking at it on a hindsight. They are not, they have not felt it firsthand. They're just feeling like the aftermath of what it might be. Okay,
Yes.
so I just want to get that clarity that what does get misunderstood so often about trauma and mental health?
Well, the first thing about trauma, there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, and we actually, in the field of psychology, have almost come a 360 in our understanding of trauma since the late 1960s, 1970s, that era. Because prior to that, most trauma was looked at as from soldiers. You had people going into war, and this goes all the way back to, I mean, this is hundreds of years, if not thousands, where it's been discussed and viewed through the lens of a soldier in war coming back, and now they have, these different emotional problems. And, it wasn't until globally, even, I think it was like 1980. I think the DSM-3, which is the kind of the accepted, one of the two accepted diagnostic manuals for psychiatry. I think in 1980 was the first time they even had the complete diagnosis of PTSD. But by that time, we had started realizing a couple of things that were very important. One, it's not just soldiers. Anybody that experiences trauma that's severe enough or lasts long enough can develop PTSD, can develop the symptoms that lead to that. So it's not just soldiers. I worked for many years in a domestic violence and sexual assault agency, and many people that experience domestic violence or sexual assault that's trauma, develop PTSD, develop those symptoms and diagnosis. So that's one thing we've learned. It's not just soldiers, and it doesn't have to be like super extreme in some viewpoints, and what might be traumatic to you might not be traumatic to me. So anyone can develop it. The other thing about trauma, again, coming from kind of from that same era, I think there must have been something going on in like the 1960s where there's like these shifts in thought process, because we'd had from the mid 1800s up to that point, Freud was the basis of psychology. There were other Adler and those people, but that was kind of the basis. And there was like this shift all of a sudden to, wait a minute, it's not just mental. It's not just repressed emotions or repressed thoughts. So we have an understanding, which is developing now at a beautiful rate, in a beautiful way, is that trauma is stored in the body. Yeah. It's not just that, okay, my mom died when I was 8. That was very traumatic, so I remember that. I actually don't remember much of that. Sometimes when you go through trauma, your mind kind of blocks it out to keep you from replaying it. And there's little bits and pieces I remember, but not a lot. It's in the body. When you experience trauma, your body goes, and everyone's pretty much heard fight, flight, or freeze. You have these immediate reactions. Well, that's from your nervous system. That's not from your brain, from your cognitive thoughts. Because if you're walking around a corner and there's a bear there, you don't stop and think, there's a bear. Okay. I've read that bears can kill you. Okay. He looks scary. I see his teeth and his claws. Okay. I should probably turn around and run. All right, let's do that. No, your nervous system goes bam, and you're out of there. That's how quickly it is. So these things get stored in your body because when those processes are activated in the nervous system, for a child whose brain is developing, it literally reroutes the neural pathways to say, okay, instead of growing towards comfort, instead of growing towards safety, instead of growing towards love and acceptance and growth and confidence and resilience, it says there's danger emotionally or physically, so we need to reroute all of our systems to danger response. Yeah. So, which in your body can look like increased cortisol levels, increased adrenaline. It can wear down your immunity system, your digestive system. It can impact your heart health, all of these things. So we drastically need to understand and jump on this horse and ride it. Physical health is mental health, and vice versa. If you have a mental health issue, 1,000% you have a physical health issue. Yeah. Vice versa. You got physical health problems, there's a huge chance they come from trauma. And you may not even think about it in those terms, but it's almost guaranteed. So, yeah. So the fact that it's physical and not just mental, and the fact that anyone can experience trauma and develop symptoms or even a disorder from it is possible.
Recently, I was having a talk with a doctor. He has been dabbling into all sorts of things, but primarily he helps people get rid of the limiting belief. And he mentioned that your physical pain is very much mental, like as you just mentioned. He also works or helps people based on that theory, that if you're feeling something mentally, then it's for sure 100% can translate into physical trauma as well. So once you're discarding that limiting belief and you're clear on your brain that I'm okay, then maybe your body will also accept that you're okay. Otherwise, the trauma that you're feeling mentally will also be translated physically. As you have mentioned a few lines before, that we have been uh, educated that trauma is something that works in a certain way, maybe in 1960, as you mentioned. But
Mm-hmm.
I think before that, trauma is all about physical, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
term that's been used medically as well. That
Oh yeah.
the person has a trauma in his arteries or in his brain or whatever. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
define trauma as something very severe, damage in a body part, and we need to work on that. But
Yes.
as time went by, trauma kind of translated into this both hemispheres, physical and also mental. And people
Mm-hmm.
started to be aware of the fact that, okay, trauma is something that can be mental also, and we need to look after mental health so that the trauma, that mental trauma, does not translate into physical trauma, and we do not feel that we are being dragged down so much.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk a lot about resilience. You have been hinting resilience throughout our talk right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
not in the fluffy motivational sense, it's very real.
Right. Right.
But someone who is in the thick of it, resilience kind of feels very hard to acquire. For someone who has been through a lot of traumas, maybe has
Mm-hmm.
developed PTSD along the way, they have kind of developed a thick skin, and are, you know, uh, kind of have this barrier placed around them that they don't easily accept things, or they don't want to accept things. And I just want to talk about that resilience, that how do you
Mm-hmm.
develop that, or if at all you have developed so much resilience that you are just not ready to accept anything or not letting anyone be closer to you because you are afraid that what if I am committing to this action, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
relationship, personal life, professional life, whatever that might be, will cause me trauma instead. So people are kind
Uh,
of, as I've said, building barriers around you just because of that resiliency. Maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way, but it's affecting their lives. So how to identify that and build
mhm.
resilience in a good way?
Yeah. I would say that if someone is afraid in some sense or resistant to a situation, that's not resilience. That's avoidance. Resilience is no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. If I play this game with you, if we play cards, I might lose, and that's okay. I hope I'm going to win. I'm very competitive, but uh, you know, if I lose this game, it's all right. It's just a game. We'll keep going. I'll get better next time. Resilience is the ability to learn from experiences and grow from experiences. So people that have a healthy resilience then are more equipped or better equipped, stronger in a sense to handle new situations, to go into new situations. Um, and that is something that parents can teach their children. It's something that people learn from their environment growing up. Someone just yesterday asked me, when you have two people in the same situation, let's say soldiers, they're in a war, and they come out, one develops PTSD and the other does not. Why? They were both in the same situation. The two answers that we know of, and again, we don't know everything. So if you haven't figured out that the medical industry doesn't really know everything they say they know, we're still learning. Um, but the reasons that we know is some people have more resilience and some people have a better care and support system after experiencing trauma. And that's the two differences there. So if you're trying to build resilience, there's a talk therapy is probably honestly one of the best tools for that. If that's an issue, you don't have resilience, you want to build it. You can tell a therapist, hey, this is specifically what I want to work on, and they can help you with that. And they kind of do, like you mentioned, is help you change limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs would be like, well, nobody loves me. Okay, well, that probably comes from trauma. So let's work on that. Let's change that. And there's different types of therapy. There's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that works on negative beliefs and changing those into positive beliefs. And the whole purpose of that is to build resilience. And you should be taught, not just talked to, not just me telling you, oh, you're going to be okay. Yeah, you'll be all right. You should be taught, okay, when you have this thought, let's write it down. Now, write down the opposite of that thought. Next time you have that thought, try to catch it. It's not a matter of judging yourself or thinking bad because you have that thought. It's something that's grown there for probably many years, but try to catch it. Then, when you find yourself able to catch that thought when it happens and be like, oh, I just had that thought again. Instead of going down into, self-deprecating, feelings, you catch it. You're like, oh, I just had that thought that nobody loves me. The next step is, you know what? One, that's not true. And two, there are people that love me. You learn just like anything else, any other process, you learn this to build resilience. And another way is to work on your social support. If you've got close friends, but not close family, don't worry about it. You don't owe them anything. You don't owe them, you don't have to go do things for them. If it's important to you, sure. If it's not, don't worry about other people judging you and whatever. If your friendships are closer, then work on those. Spend time, make appointments, do something to work on those, because that will naturally build resilience. That will naturally build a support system. Do things that you enjoy. Find the hobbies that you enjoy. And no, sleeping for 12 hours a day to cover up, pain and trauma and depression is not a hobby. Sitting and watching TV for 6 hours straight is not a hobby. And I'm, huge TV and movie fan. So that's what I had to learn like years ago. I was like, oh yeah, I can just sit here and watch this movie 2 or 3 times in a row. And no, it doesn't work that way. You're hiding. But finding things that you enjoy, because that boosts the chemicals going to your brain, like dopamine. You do something you enjoy, you're like, okay, all those things help. Again, that kind of goes back to the physical. You're sort of tricking your brain by giving it something that it wants and needs physically, but it has an emotional impact. So yeah, resilience can definitely be learned, just like any other skill.
As you've mentioned that sleeping or watching TV does not help you at all. I mean, it's what you mentioned earlier. Also, it's what making you avoid stuff. You don't want to face it, and you only build resilience once you have accepted that, okay, this has happened. Now I need to work on myself, or maybe can I change the situation now, or do I need to block these thoughts? Do I need to talk about these things? Do I need to seek therapy? What do I need to do to get past this trauma? But that only comes into our mind once you have accepted that this has already happened and we need to work on something so that we are on the brighter side and not doomed for life. And I think if you want to get past and lead a healthier life, you need to have a purpose in mind. I mean, there might be years where people have spent in solitary watching TV, ordering food online, or never going out, just because they haven't faced with a trauma that they can never overcome and can never forget.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way where they have, or the only scenario where they have overcome those traumas is by, going out of the way, even though it's out of the comfort zones. But once they have tried, to work on that thing, to find the root cause and then cut it from there, then only they have found the inner peace. So yeah,
Yes.
I just want to talk about that phase where we get serious about the purpose and work on ourselves. As you've mentioned, self-care is something very important here. And you being
Mm-hmm.
a comic book fan, I'm being a big comic book fan and a movies fan. I can see this scratch post behind you. You also love
Oh,
cats. I
yes.
also love cats. So yeah, I think there's a lot of similarity that we can explore right now. That how does this aspect of it, the interest, how can we explore this and find our calling? How can we balance this, passion or our likings and find the purpose so that we are driven enough to fulfill that higher purpose, but at the same time, we are also giving ourselves that self care so that
Mm-hmm.
the past trauma is not a big deal anymore.
Yeah. So, and pursuing your passions is something that I think, we might take for granted if you're like not in the middle of struggling to even make it to work or make it out of bed every day. You're not pursuing any passions at that level. So you have to start with the basics, the needs, If I don't know. I was trying to think of an example like a fire. Uh, if there's, if your house is on fire, um, you don't just put out the fire in one room, you know, because if you do that, you might be successful, but the rest of the house is still on fire. So guess what's going to happen? It's going to keep burning. So you have to, you have to treat what's necessary first, but that's not the end of it. Once you find that you're in a position to grow and to heal, then you feel more like pursuing some passions. You feel like doing something that you enjoy. And we'll take comic books. If comic books is something that you enjoy, superheroes, the movies, whatever, start writing about it, start drawing if you're artistic, start talking about it, get on YouTube or TikTok and start a channel and say, hey, yeah, I'm just here talking about comic book characters. Guess what? There's thousands of people every single day listening and watching and creating content about something like that. Because there's a lot of people that enjoy that. So you just pick something that you like, something that you feel good about, and just start doing that. Start doing it and say, you know what? No matter what stage I'm in my healing and growth, I'm going to do this. There's going to be some days you just don't feel like it. Um, Even with me at this point, I know the importance of physical health, and I'm still a slacker about going to the gym. I know it. There's no pretending. I'm a slacker. I just am. I'll go 2 or 3 days, and then the next thing I know, it's been like a week or two, and I'm like, I need to go to the gym. I need to go for a walk. Um, but uh, there are some days that I may be like, you know what? Regardless of my personal goal with this, today I just feel like crap. I'm having a rough day today. I can tell that my depression is just, it's knocking on the door and it wants to come in. I I just physically don't have the energy to do that. That's okay. You just accept that and you say, yep, this is part of the process. This is part of the process. So you accept it and you keep moving. And then tomorrow when I feel better, I say, yeah, today I feel better. At 2 o'clock, I'm going. Even if I just go for a walk, I'm going. Um, so you have to allow yourself, like you said, acceptance of what you're dealing with, that the reality of it, um, and but at the same time, just keep moving forward in some way. One small step forward is still a step forward. So when you find those passions, you find what you enjoy, work on that and keep working on it.
You have been, in the trenches for so long that you have made yourself learn these fantastic, insights about how self-care, can help you redeem your soul. I have been, in the trenches of depression as well. And as you just mentioned that you start to do or you pursue what you really like the example that you gave was so on point. I like sketching. I love sketching. I'm a very creative guy through and through. And whenever I felt like I'm slipping into that darkness, I'll try to do something that makes me feel enjoyable. Either I'll start to play video games, I'll listen to music, I'll start sketching, I'll record a new podcast episode. Who knows? I mean, the things that I love most is what I feel like there's an escape in. And partly the reason why I started the podcast, not this one, I had one focused on mental health back in the day. And that was just because I was depressed. I lost two family members, both of my grandparents. And I was so connected with my grandfather, and it was COVID back then, that I could not handle the trauma, and I still could not believe that I have lost a soul. Every day I felt like he's sitting right there in front of me. We used to share a room. He was under full-time care. He was home nursed, and he was having all sorts of medical things going on. He had a stroke and he went away. I don't know, but we were never able to accept that reality, and just because of that, I slipped into this depression. And whenever I felt like I don't have anywhere to go, I'll just sit in silence, lock myself in the room, and start sketching or hit record. And in a way, even though I was trying to avoid the fact that I have lost someone, just because I was working on myself. Maybe it's for a higher purpose or not. Back then it was not. But just because I was enjoying what I was doing, in a way I was helping myself heal.
Yes.
And as I went on doing that, I noticed that this podcast is acting like a path for me to open up my brain, whatever I'm feeling, like you are doing journaling. I used to utter those things through my podcast episodes. I used to rant in a way, and that helped me relieve those stress.
Yes.
Just like, I mean, it's different for everyone, right? Some people like journaling, some people like to speak to others, some people tend to go for therapy, and some people like me start a podcast and hit record.
I don't know of anyone else that does that. I think you're the only one. No, I'm just playing with you.
Yeah.
Yes, but you're right. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of helped me, reroute myself and find that calling, and again made me work on myself. I discovered where I'm lacking. I certainly was not a good speaker. I did not know how to go around the microphone, the technicalities, the posting, the SEO, and a lot of stuff. But I stuck with it because I enjoyed it. I did not care about the metrics. I did not care about how many people are tuning in, downloading the episodes. Just stuck with it. And after a couple of months, I felt like I'm healing myself, and through that journey, I'm also helping others do the same. I spoke with a couple of friends. They approached me and they were like, I'm listening to your episodes and I feel like you're talking with me directly. And this resonated so much with me that I made my relatives, my family listen to the whole episode. I just took my phone there, put it on speaker, and made everyone listen to it. And that was such an amazing moment for me, because I felt like even though I am trying to heal myself, in the process, I am healing a few other souls as well.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, you're trying to survive by opting for self-care, but you're also helping some other souls survive as well. So that's the beautiful thing about this purpose and this journey. And just because you have been doing that for years, I mean, professionally, is hugely admirable, and I have tons of respect for that. But managing the mental load, being diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, and having that inner dialogue within you that you are not enough, maybe you can never heal, is what keeps people, from working on themselves, even though they have interest. Let's take an example that if you are fully pumped to work on something, let's say you want to start a new project, but suddenly you had a fight with maybe your spouse, maybe your relative, maybe your siblings, and suddenly you have lost all that energy, all that interest to start that thing. Even though you're about to start, you can't anymore because you had that disgusting feeling within you that no, I have lost all interest now because of that small petty fight. So managing that mental load is really tough. So do you
Yes.
have any strategies on how we can reroute, that that is something that does not affect my current situation. I was prepared to work on XYZ. Just because that happened, that need not influence what I was trying to do right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's you can have a goal to work on something, and whether it's intentional self-care or if it's just doing something that you enjoy, which, as you stated, is self-care. Um, and then something happens, just everyday life, um, and something happens to kind of reroute that, because it's emotionally heavy, and yeah, now you're thinking about it, now you're feeling it, and so what do you do? A couple of strategies. One is learn breath work. I think learning breath work is free. So jump on YouTube and watch the videos. You can learn breath work. And I don't mean, the kind where you're, polar plunging, jumping into negative 30-degree water and trying to breathe. I just mean learning to breathe as a way of bringing down your nervous system, that response, that emotional response. Learn that breath work, because that's something that you can do in that moment to just kind of, de-escalate a little bit, and that will help. Another thing is do something physical. So again, engage your body. Go for a walk, go for a swim, go play tennis, whatever you like to do, whatever is available to you, just do it. You don't go to the gym, no problem. Put your shoes on and go for a walk. The same thing, when you move your body, when you put it into motion, it will start regulating the nervous system. It will start regulating the hypothalamus, the adrenal gland, all those parts that are kicked in this fight or flight, whether it's mild, moderate, or severe. Your body will naturally start to kind of regulate that, because you're making your body focus on something else. Oh crap, we got to do this now. We got muscles moving. We need to burn, glucose for energy. We need to do that. Your body gets engaged, which kind of takes the focus off whatever's going on. If you have a support system, a friend or family member that you trust and talk to, and your relationship is one that you allow venting, for each other, give them a call if you can. Say, hey, this just happened. Here's what happened. Blah, blah, blah. The only thing I would say, though, is just be wary of that, in that if you have a friend or someone close to you that you can vent to, if when you do that, they always give you platitudes and always take your side and say, oh, yeah, that person, yeah, you're right, that person's horrible, that person's evil, and blah, blah, blah. If they kind of join in with criticism. There's a difference in that and someone that listens and says, "Oh yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that sounds rough. I can understand that. How are you feeling about that?" You know, um, you know, there's a difference in good listening and bad listening. That's all I'm saying is be wise, be wise. Um, and then my favorite again, journaling. I know I keep pitching this like I'm, running for journaling president, but I'm not. Um, Journaling allows you to say whatever you want and need to say, and it doesn't go any further. So it gets it out of your system, but it doesn't have to have any effect on anybody else. It just allows you to vent, just allows you to cry, just allows you to curse. It just allows you to whatever you need to do. Um, so those are some very practical things that people can do in that moment that will help, again, kind of de-escalate their own emotions. And it will give you a chance to sort of, I don't say cool off, but we're not always talking about anger here. It could be sadness too. But it gives you a chance for your mind to kind of come back to balance and whatever that is for you, and give you an opportunity to then move on and then say, "Oh yeah, okay, well, this project I started, I'm gonna hit it again tomorrow." And then tomorrow, if there's one thing you can do, do it. You don't have to do the whole thing until you're, back to that flow. Once you get back in the flow of the creativeness of the work, every single person, whether you have a mental illness, whether you have grief, no matter what, every single person on earth goes through constant fluctuation, constant up and down in life. The most successful people that you can see online that have all these programs and these businesses and this celebrity and this and that, blah, 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 they had learning curves. They did things that, that you would never even imagine that they did. I've seen, you can watch sometimes, especially with actors that are like, the super famous ones, the high level ones. You go back and watch their early career. There's some of them that they did like hamburger commercials, like for McDonald's. And you would think there's no way they would ever do that now, because there's not. But in the beginning they did. They just took that one step towards their goal. And when you're dealing with these strong emotions and things, if you can get to an equilibrium and then just take that one step tomorrow or later today even, just take that one next step, then you can start going back uphill, and that's normal.
I mean, we know that healing is never linear because we always have this ups and downs. Some days might feel good, some days might feel low, but it's really important to understand and identify those lows and really be aware that, okay, I'm feeling low. Maybe I need to take things slow today instead of pushing it.
Yes.
I have found this tip to be very helpful, obviously coming from a creative, but it might apply to almost everyone dealing with mental health issues, is that if you're not feeling to do something or start something or get back to it, just start. Even though you're not feeling it, just start. See if you are getting the flow. Give yourself just 5 minutes. For example, if you want to sketch daily, but you're not able to bring yourself to open up the sketchbook, just try your level best to open the sketchbook. Try to scribble for the first 5 minutes. If you're getting the flow, stick to it. If you're not, close the book, get back to what we were doing earlier. But 95% of the times what people have seen is that once they start, they get the flow. Even though they're not feeling it, they will get the flow, because the act of starting, has an inertia, and that motion kind of takes them forward, and they have now forgotten like what was keeping them or holding them back. And this is a small act of, trying to push yourself out even though you're not feeling it is very brave, but that is all that is required, to get started, get bounce back on what you were trying to do earlier. So
Yep.
yeah, this is what I feel emotional recovery starts from, and there's a lot of myths that go around, and how people navigate those setbacks. But I'm afraid that we don't have a lot of time to explore that. We are almost end of our session, but I want to keep it very much insightful for the listeners. So we'll explore a few, maybe a couple more topics right now, and we'll try to go fast with it. But
Okay.
I'm very curious to know about how you, who was journaling to get past of this mental trauma or those, depression, ended up being an author.
Well, so coming from the writing I did as a teenager, it was something I enjoyed. I just enjoyed doing it. So, some people just don't like it at all creatively. So that's just something I did creatively, enjoyed. So it's kind of, in a sense, always been there, but not always a goal, not always something that, oh, I want to be a writer, I want to be an author, and this and that. But over the years, even with, growth and healing, I explored poetry, so written some poetry. Um, uh, when I was working on my bachelor's degree, I ended up working with a writing institute and submitting a couple of articles, and they got published. And so they were just little things. I was just kind of trying it out. I was just like, okay, well, here's this group. They're asking for articles on mental health and personal stories. So why not? And and these publications, probably maybe 50 people saw them. I don't know. I've never seen them in a bookstore, but uh, it's just trying out the little things. And the thing that I guess really kind of turned the corner for me was when I was working on my master's degree. Ours was primary, and I didn't go into it for therapy, talk therapy. So I wanted to learn more that I could apply in other ways. And so most of the course was research and writing, research and writing. Every single week we had to read 5 to 8 scientific articles and then write a paper on blah, 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 blah. It was a lot of work, but I loved it. I loved the writing. So when it came time to do my thesis paper, I wrote the paper. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. It took a long time, but submitted the paper. The professor really loved it, and he came to me privately and said, "Hey, look, I got 2 questions for you. You can say yes or no. It's just a question. Number one, I showed your paper to my associate dean in the department. The school would like to publish your paper." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, that's great." And he said, "Question number 2, I'd like to also use it and include it in the curriculum for my classes." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome." So I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And I was like, "You know what? Huh. I I have 2 years worth of research and writing. I would like to help people. Here's a way I can do it. I can write these books. They're short. They're to the point. They describe each one is, each of the 4 so far. It covers a different mental health issue: anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD. They describe the condition, so you get a little bit of background and understanding of what you're dealing with or what your family member is dealing with. And then it goes into very practical steps on how to manage it, how to know when to get help, how to know what getting help looks like. What should you expect in therapy? What is breath work? How does your diet, your physical, all those things. So that's how I kind of got to the author stage, was a little bit of passion, a little bit of luck, maybe, I don't know. and just a realization that this was something that I enjoyed and it could help other people.
For creators and builders, they tend to go into this path where they self sabotage themselves. Maybe these are
Hmm.
thoughts, maybe these are actions, but they end up making them regret on a lot of things.
Hmm.
And for these people who are dealing with anxiety or neurodivergence, what's that
Hmm.
one mindset shift that you can advise those people that can stop them or help them stop self sabotaging?
That's a good question. Yeah, self-sabotaging is rough when you have an issue and you have, you know, your own body and mind like doing this to you, even when you have something that you want to do. Um, an idea to help stop self-sabotage is to, one, accept the fact that no matter why you have these thoughts, no matter what you're dealing with, every single successful person has gone through the same thing. You don't see it. You only see the finished product. You don't see the struggles that they went through to get there. And if you listen to people speak, they'll tell you this, but you kind of have the sense that, well, they're just saying that. No, they're not. They're a person that wants to sell you a product or an an image or something. They don't want to share the dirty parts, the failures. Failure is just part of life. Um, and there's so many famous examples. We could name hundreds and thousands, but just get online and Google, say you know, who's a successful person that met failure at first, and you'll see so many examples. So even though you're struggling with an emotional or a mental issue, you're okay. That actually, what you're dealing with is normal. Just keep going. Just do it anyways. What's going to happen if you don't do it? If you don't do it, you're going to sit there the rest of your life wishing you had. You're going to sit there regretting that you didn't take that chance. Even if you fail at it, okay, guess what? The fact that you're sitting here right now tells me you have survived 100% of the things that have come against you in your life so far. 100%. Self failure, situations, circumstances, genetics, environment, you're 100% successful in your 100% in your success rate against things that have come against you so far.
Yeah. And most of the times, these people feel like living the life feels like a chore right now, and they don't want to do that. And they're just trying to survive with what means they have and with the bare minimum they should do so that they're not affected by additional traumas. And for
Yeah.
those people, I just want to know what progress looks like and how can they know that, okay, I have started healing and this is what healing looks like.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. Sometimes it's that you get to a point where you can talk about the trauma that you experienced without breaking down or it not being as strong, whether it's to a therapist, whether it's to a friend or whatever, or like this. Oh, Lord, when I was taking my, working on my bachelor's degree, I actually at that time wanted to go into therapy. I wanted to do therapy, and I did an internship at a boys' shelter, working with teenage boys who were um, possibly, some of them were homeless, some of them were in the juvenile system, committed crimes. Some of them had parents that had abandoned them, those kinds of things. And I would go this I would go home every night and cry. And so at the end of the 3-month internship that I was doing, I knew 1000% I was not ready for that. That was not the path for me at that moment. Now, fast forward another, you know, 10, 15 years or something like that to when I was working in the domestic violence and sexual assault agency. Even though I wasn't doing one-on-one therapy, I was doing program development and management. There were still times where I had interaction with clients because we were all on call. So if there was an emergency on Tuesday night, that was my own call. I would deal with it. But I knew then that I was at a great place, that I had made great progress in my healing because I could go talk to someone. I could listen to them, what they were going through without like literally breaking down in the middle of it because of my own trauma. So it's those little things. It's those little things that you notice like, wow, you know what? That used to really set me off. You have to become a student of yourself to know what's working, what's going to work for you, what is working for you, and how much progress you've made, or when to change directions, when to change focus, you know. But being a student of yourself and recognizing what's working and what's not, that will help you, and it will also encourage you, because then you'll start seeing those little things like, oh yeah, I can do this now, or I could do that now, and I couldn't used to do that. You know, that was very tender for me. And it's not a matter of I used to be weak, or I was weak, I wasn't worthy, I wasn't this, I wasn't that. It's just a sign that, hey, look, I'm growing and I'm healing. So yeah, it's just become a student of yourself and notice those little things.
I think you need to be hopeful that you will get past this and progress or approach this with an optimistic mindset that, yeah, you'll pull through. We are almost at the end of our podcast session. And before we part our ways, we have this segment where we asked rapid fire questions to our guests. And
oh boy.
The catch is you can't take long to think. You can't be very descriptive with your answers. It's rapid fire. It's going to be fast. I'll shoot 4 questions and you have to shoot 4 answers right after.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm ready.
First one. One belief about trauma you wish everyone would unlearn.
That it's only in your mind. Only in your mind.
Gotcha. A self-care practice that costs $0 but gives the biggest return.
Journaling. Maybe not $0, but like $1.50.
Yeah, I think I had that coming. A quote that got you through a hard season.
Other people have survived through trauma and through mental health issues. If they can do it, I can do it.
Awesome. The last one. What would your superhero name be and what would that power be?
Dang it. I want to take someone else's superhero name. Oh gosh, I don't know. This is stupid. The Time Wizard, because I wish I could freeze time.
More like Doctor Strange, is it?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Yeah, I wish I could freeze time and do stuff with everything else and everybody else frozen. So that would be my power, definitely. The name, I'm not 100% sold on, but we'll go with Time Wizard.
Gotcha. That just ends our segment for the rapid fire. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I mean, this has been a real wonderful session. I certainly learned a lot. I had a lot of fun, talking with you as well. We had humor, we had reflections, and a whole lot more. I think this is what people need, and they need to, if they want to work on themselves, they need to be aware of these stuff so that the healing is something that they can work on next.
Yep.
But before we end our session, do you have any final message to our listeners?
Don't be afraid of working on whatever you're facing. It is scary and it is difficult. I by no means want to sit here and say, oh, look, I'm this and that, so it must be easy. It's not, but it's worth it. You're worth it. And the rest of your life is worth it. And you can make it through the storm. I promise you can make it through the storm. Just take that first step.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Jamie, for spending your time with me, for giving your time and appearing on the show. I'm really grateful. And yeah, hopefully we can do this in the near future as well.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something new and the experiences that has been shared can help you get past or help you in a healing journey as well. I'll leave links to Jamie's socials and also his recent books down the description for you to go and check it out. But I'll catch you in the next one. So until then, take care.